Hello, hello, everyone make your way into the Posted Studios. We have another amazing talk today. I hope you are all super excited because we're going to hear from Maggie Baird, founder of Support and Feed and mother to Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell, as she discusses how artists and fans can support the climate movement. The talk is going to be moderated by Samata, Pattinson, founder of Black Pearl. Take it away.
Thank you. Hi everyone. It's lovely to be here with you. I'm thrilled as well because I get to be in conversation with someone I consider a friend and just someone who's massively inspiring to anybody who meets Maggie, like literally. She really is. So we're having a conversation about music, sustainability, support and feed. But I thought what would be really nice for people who might know about support and feed or might not, but don't really know how your whole journey began. Would you share with us a bit, Maggie, about just your life pre-support and feed and pre all of this? Because you've written, you've directed like films, you've acted. Like, can we just get a little bit of a background on Maggie before this sustainability journey began? Can you hear me? No, it's not.
Now?
Yeah.
Also, I have like a learning issue. When there's music playing, my brain just wants to listen to the music. So if I start to wander like this, go like that. It's really a problem. I grew up in a little tiny town in western Colorado, very, very beautiful town, and I think that was a part of my journey toward environmentalism, which is I lived in nature and I loved it, and that was in the 70s really, and believe it or not, in the 70s it seemed like we were going to get a hold of this issue and deal with it, and we really fucked that up. But in the 70s, it was really so nature oriented, and I loved my state, and then I loved animals, and I never wanted to eat animals in my whole life. I never wanted to eat one. And then when I was 17, I was sort of allowed to be a vegetarian, and then later became a vegan. But then I went on to be an actor, and the environmental part of me was always there. Was really, I don't want to say I was annoying to people because I hate that idea. But when I talk to people who knew me when I talk to people who knew me in high school and college, and they're like, oh, this is just you. This is what you were always saying. Like, nothing's different. It's just people are actually listening now and not rolling their eyes quite as much. So then I became an actor, and I remember, I've never said this before, but I remember talking to my brother about, like, should I want to be an actor, but I also want to work for Greenpeace. And my brother at the time was like, yeah, but if you become a successful actor, people will listen to you in a different way, and you'll have a different platform. And so I sort of took that road, and then I was a working class actor. Working class actors are people who, make a living, maybe make your health insurance just. So there really was not a lot of time or interest in what I had to say. And then miraculously, this path led me here. And probably that leads to but I was an actor, I made a movie, I wrote a movie, I was a songwriter, hobbyist, and that was kind of I was a groundling, member of the Groundlings.
Well, the reason I find this background piece so interesting is because what you're doing right now, which we're going to go into, touches on so many of these industries. Like you're intersecting with film, with music, with storytelling, especially the storytelling piece. And I think people seeing that you've been through that journey yourself as someone behind the camera, in front of the camera, I think it does give us background as to how you do such good storytelling, which you do. So through that, you kind of had the acting, the producing, and all of this, and then suddenly you've transitioned and you're working across music and food as well, supporting feed. But can you explain a bit about how the sustainability part of the conversation started to become louder for you? Like, not just, oh, I'm aware that there's impact being created by how things are happening, but to the point where you made it part of your mission and what you do. Like, what was that moment when you're like, no, this is a calling now?
Honestly, it was literally always a calling, again, but it was limited to my personal life, right? So my family, I made all of our Christmas wrapping. I literally sewed bags with fabric with ribbon that we have used for 20 years. It's honestly the best thing you could ever do. They're beautiful and peaceful and easy. You know, my house was, you know, I was bringing my cloth bags, you know, and, you know, like the whole personal journey, you know, gradually, you know, we got solar, and it was like literally like one of the best days of my life, you know. we got the government program that reimbursed you, and the government program that reimbursed you for taking out your grass, you know. These were like milestones of joy for me. And then, so that was just really our personal life, and just talking about climate change, you know, ad nauseum, really. And then, boom, we stepped into the music industry, and it was like a shock, you know. It was like, hold on, what is happening here? Like, what is going on? Why are there plastic water bottles? Why is the generator running all day? You know, why is the truck doing this? And, you know, how can I have been like worrying about my personal, you know, climate costs when this monstrous industry is happening? And so then, you know, we just started asking questions, just constantly asking questions. Why is this happening? Can we do this better? Can we do this better? And to be honest, I said this many times, but in the beginning, the answer was like, no, you know, no, that's how it's done. That's how the music industry works. And then I just asked enough questions that people introduced me to the right people. I got to know the people at Reverb. I got to know, you know, other artists. And so then, it was, you know, simultaneously, Billy and Phineas, you know, developed this, you know, lucky circumstance. And so then people started listening to me, and they started listening to Billy. And so when Billy said, you know, I want the souls, I actually learned this recently, that when we first met with Nike, the first meeting, we said we need to see your sustainability report and your strategic plan. And that was many years ago. And I met somebody recently who had worked at Nike at the time, and he said they had to drop everything for 2 weeks and basically make that. So that was kind of the amazing thing, was like suddenly people were coming back and they were like, okay, you know, we can do this and we can do this and we can do that. So then it was just this amazing kind of snowball of meeting great people who were already doing. Some of them are here today. You know, they've already spoken this weekend, but you know, the change that was possible and getting everybody on board. And I know we're going to get to this subject. I'll stop talking.
Okay,
I'll
remember what you were going to say?
I'll remember.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted to pick up on something you said, because I actually really agree with you. You said there was a moment in time when you thought, when it felt like we're actually going to be able to do something good. Like, and I think, I'm aware that there was this moment of feeling of like we're actually going to create a movement of positive impact. Where do you feel like that went wrong? Like, where do you feel like,
Ronald Reagan.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, honestly, it starts with the government, right? I mean, 1980, whatever the heck he was elected.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a depressing time, and everyone here can look back at Ronald Reagan and think, oh, he was great. Only by comparison.
Yeah.
That was the start of the trickle-down economics theory and the anti-woman theory. You know, this was a dark time. Reaganomics was horrifying, and it was a move away from everything in the 70s that was starting to be like, feel good, environmental, women's rights, like it was a good time. And then the 80s just tanked, you know, just really tanked. And, you know, again, when George Bush, you know, won over, you know, Gore, right? I mean, that was it. We almost had Al Gore. Can you believe it? An environmental leader could have been our president and technically won in the election and lost because of the hanging chads and blah blah. But those were major turning points. When you look at the you know, the novel of our life, the dystopian novel that is the world now, you go, oh yeah, Ralph Nader blew it.
Well, I was curious because we knew there was a moment, and then we knew there was a moment when it started to look different. But now, through kind of the efforts of across industries, there has to be an idea that we can create change, otherwise we wouldn't be trying, right? which leads me to like your journey, talking about intersecting with the music industry, because obviously you're a musical family, like you also play, you also have amazing skills, and then you have these two children who are also phenomenal artists. So there's this moment, I guess, as a family where you realise this is a conversation we want to be having and this is the impact we can have, and we're going to do it. How did the industry, you talk about like them having to do the proposal in 2 weeks, how has the industry responded? And obviously, can you see the correlation between the visibility and the success of your children and the responses that happened around them and their team? So how would you describe witnessing that, you know, seeing how the industry responds to like a fledgling artist and then someone who's really established? And what context does that give to how hard this might be?
Well, it's a great question, and I absolutely saw it. You know, I saw that, you know, in the beginning, first of all, people may not realize this, but artists in the beginning stages don't make any money. You just don't make any money. Your tour, you can have a sold out tour, that's going to lose money. You calculate, like, can I afford to go on this tour? How much am I going to lose? That's what it's like. And so the budget is really, really important. So anything that's like infringing on the budget is going to be an issue. So that is a part of it also, right? You're just trying to stay afloat. That's where I think labels can support, booking agents can support, you know. How do you support that artist? How do you share the sustainability costs across the board? Because that's one of the things I noticed was that all the sustainability costs in the beginning were coming out of Billy's share, right? Before commissions, before whatever, and I was like, no, that has to come off the top. We share this burden, that comes off the top. So it's definitely a switch, but I think the fact that we had already been asking for it made a difference. There's an artist named Angie Munn, she's Australian, and you know, she just played the Troubadour. And she played, I think, the Moroccan Lounge before that or something, right? But she's had, I haven't talked about support and feed yet, but she's had support and feed at both of her shows because she really cares about feeding people and food equity. She cares about the climate. And so she's been able to feature us there at both of her shows, even at that lower level of artistry. So I think just having that consciousness and awareness and asking questions and see who can table at my show, whose platform can I highlight, you know, how can I shine a light on someone who's doing something, even if I don't yet have a, you know, big sponsor.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to come back to all of the different things you're doing across music, because obviously we're at a music festival, but I'd love to talk about support and feed, because that's my kind of one of my entry points to even getting to know about all of the incredible things you're doing through support and feed with your amazing team. So for people who aren't aware about support and feed, and please do scan this while the conversation is happening, could you introduce or share a little bit about what support and feed is and why did it begin?
Yes, I will. I have a FaceTime audio on there, so will you check? See if it's a family member. So support and feed was really, it came out of on a 2020 tour that never happened. We had gone on a tour with Billy that it was going to be a world tour, and we were very excited about the sustainability measures that we had in line for that tour. And 3 shows in, you know, we had to come home. So, and one of the sustainabilities we do on Billy's tours is we have all 100% plant-based food. For 3 meals a day, 100 crew members. Because as I hope all of you know here, what we eat is one of the largest contributors to the climate crisis, particularly animal agriculture. Well, that is the issue. So by feeding our crew plant-based food and enlisting our fans to eat plant-based food in the arenas, we can really address climate. So when we came home from that ill-fated tour, Billy and I were sitting around thinking about all the terrible food insecurity that was happening and how could we help, and of course we wanted to feed people plant-based food. So we got a bunch of friends together, and within a week we were having food deliveries from small businesses, and then we had stepped into the world of food equity and our eyes were open, and I'm ashamed to say I really did not know the extent of food equity situation.
That's a really good point, because not everybody will know what food equity is, right? Or even understand that in their context. So for somebody who's beginning, trying to get their head around what is food equity, and just also thank you for those efforts during COVID, because I think it was not only that you were providing meals, but you
So, no shame if we don't know. There's a reason we don't know. The reason we're prevented from hearing some of these things. So food equity just refers to the concept of food insecurity, we all probably know, and food insecurity, by the way, can be surprising how many people experience food insecurity. In LA, it can be 1 in 4 people. That's a lot. That doesn't mean you're starving. That means you're not always sure where your next meal or your tomorrow's meal is going to come from. But food equity applies to the idea that there are systemic reasons why certain cultures, certain areas of cities, certain groups of people are cut off from nourishing food. That can be geographic, that can be the location in the city where they live, which through a system of historic redlining and systemic racism has been prevented from having businesses in their neighborhoods. Laws that exist, such as, perhaps there might be a bus line that says you can't carry more than 2 bags of groceries on a bus, and yet the bus is the only way you can get to a grocery store. Also things like they're often referred to as food deserts, but it's not really accurate. But think about an area that is just very little green space. That area can be hotter, that can be less trees, less green spaces, and that same area is generally one where people lack access to nourishing food. So it also can be financial, right? If we all know, unfortunately, certain stores and certain foods is more expensive, organically grown food, healthier food. So an area we're talking about might have a McDonald's and a KFC, and they'll have lots of cheap fast food, but they won't have nourishing, healthy food. So those are the systemic systems that we're trying to overcome and have cultural change to have it be more equitably
distributed so people can participate. Because one of the things, if you've ever been to a Support and Feed event, if you've ever been fortunate enough to be part of it, it's like the food is delicious. And I think what you're doing as well, I'd love to talk about the nutrition side of things, because I do agree, especially moving to the US and kind of traveling through certain areas, I thought even if I wanted to eat well, how can I? If you have to take 3 buses just to get to a grocery, how do you begin your journey? And then there's a nutrition side of it. So can you explain why educating on the nutritional impact of plant-based food is such a big part of what you're doing, and how do you do that? I know you do food drives, but what does that look like for accessing communities? What kind of things do you do?
Well, when we started, we were just really delivering meals, really, but then we realized, that impact, first of all, the impact is the food has to be delicious, because it's often, maybe the first time somebody consciously knows they're eating plant-based food. So the food has to be extra good, because as we know, people judge things differently. They're like, that was bad catering. But if it was vegan, they're like, that was vegan. So you have a much higher bar. And then we wanted to be nutrient dense. But really, we also knew that we could provide a much more assistance. Also, we deliver our meals to community organizations who are already doing amazing work in the community. So we very rarely are standalone Support and Feed delivering meals. We're always delivering it to organizations that already exist. And people want information, why is this healthy for me? And people have many decades and centuries of indoctrination about food. So people are like, I've been told my whole life that I have to eat meat or I have to eat dairy. So we have to help undo that indoctrination, provide some insights into health benefits, and then overcome the stereotypes of the food.
Because I've done the food drive that you did with, is it Janelle Monet's Wonderland? But when you talk about a few of the partners that you work with, not just across community-based activations, but even festivals and so on and so forth, because you do have some really cool partners that you work with.
Yeah, we're in 11 cities in the US, also Europe. We've worked in Australia with Oz Harvest. We work with organizations like Sisters of Watts, Boys and Girls Club, Metro LA, My Friend's Place, Children's AIDS in New Orleans and New York City, schools like PS20. But then we've also been so lucky to work with artists like Billy. Billy took Support and Feed on tour with her, which meant that we could table at all of her events with Reverb and also feed people in fully plant-based meal a day for 30 days. You can take the pledge right here. And Paramore, we did the same with Paramore, and we've been at festivals like Lollapalooza, Something in the Water. We work with Dave Matthews Band. The music industry is a great place for this, for what we do, because we can reach so many people like you and, you know, help enlist this army of people to really start to make this change.
Well, I love that, because if you look at the support and feed social media and the platform, you'll see like you posted, I think, this morning or yesterday about the vegan and plant-based caterers and vendors at Coachella. So they're making it super easy for you.
We just want to make it easy and accessible and make you feel welcome, cheer you on.
Exactly. So just back to the music, because you did talk about, and also I just wanted to touch on Overheated, because that's another thing. So you have spearheaded Overheated with Billy, which is was a climate festival in the first year, and it's growing kind of beyond that, where they're bringing together fashion, food, like music, and just having great conversations. Just a quick one on Overheated. Why was that an important kind of event to pull together, or movement to pull together in the way that you did? Lots of young voices as well.
I think our tour, again, we had all these sustainability measures on our tour, and we were going to be in London for 6 shows, and so that kind of spearheaded the idea of, wow, at the O2 in London, there's just a lot of opportunity for conversations and events, so that was kind of the idea that came from someone on Billy's team. And, you know, Billy's philosophy, which I think is really important in our theme today about what artists can do, is that you don't always have to be talking. You can lend your platform to other people. So she was like, yeah, we'll do this thing, but I don't want it to be about me. I want to have other people talk. So, and people, you know, they always come to musicians and celebrities like, well, you do the keynote. And we know that's important for getting people to attend, but you know, a lot of artists are like, I'm not the expert. Let's hear from the experts. So that's why it was so important that we had this panel, really for all day of panels, which much like this. We also had a clothes swap, and we had amazing plant-based food, and you know, for the fans to come and be part of what the artists they love cared about and what they clearly cared about.
I love that you flagged that, because I think we can't have this conversation without touching on just this idea of misinformation, and also the false ideal placed on any artist that says they're interested in sustainability or like even attempts to do something. Then what I've witnessed is like out of the woodwork will come all of this critique, even if they're just beginning their journey. And I think that can be really like deterrent and discouraging, coupled with misinformation. So I'm just curious, what would your advice be? We talked about this and the idea of like, well, do what works for you. Like, you know, use your platform, use your passion, but how can you articulate that to the audience right now? That kind of.
I think someone said it on the last panel, but yes, first of all, artists, humans, we can't be afraid to say what we believe about, you know, what we're trying to do better in terms of sustainability for fear of not being perfect. You absolutely cannot be perfect. It's not possible, so you can let that go. You also cannot get rid of haters and trolls. Sadly, they will not go away. And haters and trolls would rather point a finger at your imperfection than shine a light on what they are doing. So one of my suggestions is, you know, be supportive of artists who are doing things that make a difference, but also turn the camera back to yourself. What industry are you in? As a fan, you can do so much. You can, you know, bring your water bottle, you can choose a plant-based meal, you can carpool. Transportation is the biggest carbon cost. And transportation here to this festival is going to be the biggest carbon cost. So actually carpooling is massively important. You can take public transportation even better. If fans and their teams can work toward arranging that, even better. But then, once you've kind of done what you can with your artist, and you look at your industry, where do you work? Do you work in an office? Do you work with a corporation? Do you work any industry that you are in? You can start to do exactly what we did. You can start to ask questions and see how you can change. I think all the day about you know, the music industry is a problem as far as the climate crisis is, but the music industry is not alone. it's all industry. The music industry just has this amazing potential because you've got these high-profile figures in it, and so you can call a lot of attention to it. The music industry is not really worse than other industries, so look at the industry you're in, see what kind of difference you can make.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I think it takes it away from being a space and being setting unrealistic goals for people because they don't operate in that space. And you talked about other industries. We talked about fashion and sustainability. I mean, I know with Billy and the merchandising, there's so much happening there from recycled materials and non-toxic dyes. Just talk a little bit about some of the industries that you have seen intersecting with what you're doing. So I know fashion is one of them. And at Overheated, there's an amazing space for people to talk about these industries as well. But I know coming from the film and the storytelling industry, are you seeing kind of any initiatives or things that are giving you a bit of hope for how those industries can shift as well?
Well, all industries sort of touch the music industry, and I think what I just said about sustainability is true in music. If you love music and you want to be involved in the music industry, there's a job for you somewhere, right? You don't have to be a musician. You can look around. There's so many jobs in the music business. So I think everything touches everything, but particularly in the music industry, obviously we touch fashion, we touch merch, we touch production, video shoots, photo shoots, and so everything sort of shipping is a massive one, and I think that's one of the things with artists I would say most important. Artists, you don't have to do it all. Just tell your team. Once an artist gets to a certain level, you have a team of people who you work with. Tell your team that it matters to you. Tell your team to find out. You don't have to do it all. You know, enlist these people and empower them. Say, I don't want you to come to me with 50 merch samples. I want you to come with the 3 that are the most sustainable. And I will choose from those because you're going to tell me what the different story is. I don't want you to ask me how you want, how do I want to ship this? I want to say, you figure out what's the best way to do it and come back and report to me. So I think all industries, touch the music industry. I think there are great people working in the film industry. One of the things that's really important is just like, what is on camera, right? What is on camera? What are we showing people, right? Are we showing people making fun of the environmentalists?
I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to quickly jump in there because you and I won't name it, Maggie, I won't do it, but you and I were at a screening for something, right? And we're sitting there.
I won't name it.
I think you can if you want, but like we were sitting there, we weren't sitting next to each other. There's a scene, I'll let you tell it, but my first kind of thing is I went to text you and I was like, I'm not really meant to be on my phone, so, but we texted each other pretty much straight afterwards. I was like, this is so stereotypical. Can you talk a little bit about the depiction of plant-based? And also you talked about it earlier as well, just the depiction of environmentalists and people who care. Like, can you talk about that?
Well, we have, decades of making fun of tree huggers, making fun of vegans, making fun of, anyone who cares about, okay, here's a shocker for you. I mean, I find this shocking. When you talk about plant-based food, you talk about vegans, you talk about plant-based food. First of all, vegan is one of the most hated words in the English language, and that's crazy. That is crazy. It's up there with Nazi. It is that crazy. A hated word. And we can think about why that is. It's cognitive dissonance, right? If you basically agree with somebody, but you're not living that way, it's easier to make fun of them and hate them and feel bad. But that cognitive dissonance goes so far, and we sort of have allowed the media and culture to make fun of people who care about the earth because it makes us feel better that maybe we're not doing something. But that really has to stop. And plant-based food particularly, there's a movie that you're talking about that is kind of making its way into all of our consciousness as a regenerative agriculture film. But within it, they really tear down the plant-based food industry, which is really because they're telling the story about from the cattle perspective. But so often plant-based food is portrayed in this way that it's like, oh, that Beyond Burger or something, that's processed and it's made from all these things. simultaneously showing you a cow being shot in the head and disemboweled and thrown into a grinder. You know, like they're leaving that part out of the story to try to make you feel that, you know, a protein shake is gross.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is just insanity, but this kind of misdirect, you know, it's so important that we realize these are corporations at work. These are corporations who stand to make money. And they're going to lose money if you are supporting an industry that will, you know, reduce their funds. And getting behind that is super important. And really, but, you know, I see like, even like plastic water bottles on camera. Like, don't do it, hide them. You know, like literally, if you have to use one, don't take a picture with it. You know, because we need to normalize the fact that when I grew up, I'm so old that when I grew up, when we went to like a potluck church supper, we all took our dishes. Like we took our dishes, we took our silverware, we took our glasses and our napkins. That was normal. You know, I remember when like, oh my God, there's a paper plate. Oh, there's styrofoam. But like these were cool things to, you know, and now we've normalized this horrific waste and this horrific way of consuming. And so we have to re-normalize.
Alternative, like normalize the alternative. I love that, and I love what you said about just how things are depicted. And it's something, if we're aware of it, we can at least call it out to ourselves and the people around us and be like, well, why are they doing it like that? Like, we know that's not going to be the case. So with the support and feed and the pledge, because I'm going to talk about this as well. And I mean, honestly, just as you can tell, speaking to Maggie, like the breadth and depth of knowledge is deep. And so, like, that's why I really encourage you to go and engage with Support and Feed, because you put so many resources out there, like you share so much knowledge and you make it accessible, and I really appreciate that as someone who wants to learn. But can you talk to us a little bit about the pledge? Because we talk about this idea of low-hanging fruit, things that people can actually do that don't feel intimidating and don't feel too overwhelming. So how does the pledge fit into that?
You literally just, you know, QR code, take the pledge. That just means you're going to sign up and tell us that you're taking the pledge to eat at least one fully plant-based meals a day for 30 days. And then we will send you information, tips, give you guidance and help, and just support you and cheer you on when you do that. 10,000 people today did this at this festival right now. That's 7 million gallons of water saved in 30 days. That's just talking about the water. That's just one plant-based meal a day, 30 days. That's the power of our individual actions. And it's really not just about, okay, 10,000 of us did this and we did it. Well, what does that mean? That means sooner or later corporations have to respond to that, right? And, you know, as many of you may know, our alfalfa crops in California are grown for cattle in China, right? That's all the water in the Colorado River going to alfalfa for cattle in China. That kind of stuff is insane, right? It's really insane. We are not to be a doomsayer because we have hope, we can make change, but we're on a precipice. You know, in 1975 or something, when I read Diet for a Small Planet, Diet for a New American, 1975, we knew this. You know, we've been predicting where we are right now for decades, but we are actually right there. And we're not acting with enough urgency. We really are not. Even if this festival, and I applaud this festival for doing what they're doing right now, for having their more sustainable water bottle options, for having more plant-based food, really applaud them. Can go further, could go way further. What if that food was 90% plant-based food, right? What if there were water filling stations in 10 times more places? These are hard things to do. I'm not saying they're easy, but these are the kind of steps we are getting. What if everyone who got here today, there were, you know, I don't know, there was a mass transit line from LA. You know, we have to go further and we have to go faster.
Yeah. The speed thing is one of the things that gets me, because people always say, like, you know, 2050 is the goal. And I'm like, 2050? 2050?
We're going to be too busy bailing water and searching for food to have a festival.
I literally have a visual of like everyone turning hunter-gatherer because like literally like, so it always feels so far away. And I always think about when COVID hit, you know, companies changed their strategies really quickly. In fashion, we had companies that would normally say, oh, it takes 18 months to introduce a new product line, making masks overnight. So suddenly, like, they could retrofit the machines. So almost like what you're saying is like, you need to care enough and we need the right leadership and then we can do it. So in terms of hope, because I love what Global Inheritance have done, and I know they're doing things like incentivizing carpooling and all of those kind of things that matter. In terms of like encouraging people to kind of go out, why Coachella? You know, like, this is an important conversation to have, but why is a room full of people like this such an important audience to have this conversation with? You know, what do you think that says about who we need to be bringing into the conversation and where the conversations need to be taking place?
Well, for the good and the bad, right? Comparing the 1970s to now, you know, we had a chance. We blew it in the 80s. We went the wrong way. But, and right now we're in a crisis. We absolutely are in a crisis. Don't call it climate change. Take that out of your vocabulary. Climate change was a phrase coined in the Bush administration to make the words global warming and global heating less terrifying. So take climate change out of your vocabulary. It's a climate crisis. It is a global emergency. Someone said yesterday we have 2 years basically to do it. So take those words out, and really what's amazing about today as compared to the 1970s is social media. For better or worse, we are all storytellers. We all have a platform, and sometimes that's trolls and haters and corporations who are lying to us, and they have a platform too, unfortunately, and they are rampant with disinformation. But everybody here has the ability to share constructive, positive, change-making posts. Be careful, don't share disinformation, and that's not easy. You have to check your sources, you have to vet things, because any of us could share a lie like that. But it's really scary. But given the fact, assuming you have checked your sources, we are so empowered. We are so empowered to tell the story of what we believe and what we know to be true, and join this movement and call out the good you see. Call out the good. Stop calling out any negative trait you see, because science tells us, behavioralists tells us, that when you sow the seeds of doubt, people give up, right? So the smoking industry knew this. They knew that all you had to do was make somebody doubt that science was true for them not to quit smoking. And it's the same with the climate movement. When you see people starting to doubt, or you see a disinformation campaign telling you, oh, you can't eat oats, you can't drink oat milk, you can't eat broccoli, you can't eat... That is just them trying to sow the seeds of doubt in your brain so that you give up trying, right? And beware of things like, I love the plastic straw campaign. Those people are friends of mine, but you know, many of the little things that corporations try to get us to do are to distract from what they're doing. So don't let up on what they're doing by thinking, oh, I recycled my bottle and that's all I have to do. And forget to go, wait a second, what is that fossil fuel company doing over there? What is that animal agriculture doing over there? So you have to take the small actions, live in an immediate world of your family, your job, your community, and also continue to hold the feet to the fire of the corporation.
Okay, spot on. Spot on though. Well, we've talked about this, and I think that's such a beautiful note, because I think it takes a bit of the pressure off of this idea that I have to do all of it. I like that you talked about a conversation with companies and organizations and policymakers, because it's a shared responsibility. Maggie, it's always just such a pleasure speaking with you, truly. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to shine a light on?
I don't think so. I think you know, the title of this panel panel was what can artists do and what can fans do, and I think we touched on those. Artists can tell your teams, get your teams involved, ask questions, find the resources that are available to you. People will help you at whatever stage you are as an artist. Reach out to Support and Feed, reach out to Reverb and the Music Sustainability Alliance, and fans just, bring your plant-based food to the food drive, take the pledge, and support the positive actions of the artists who, are trying to make them.
Thank you.
Amazing. Can we give them another round of applause? Thank you so much, Maggie and Samata. Now stick around for our next posted studio talk with DJ and activist Anna Luneau in just a couple of minutes. Stick around.